Admiral Taeyang Han had been retired for 5 years when the call came. He was in his garden tending to roses when President Hae-won Song appeared on his personal communicator. Her face told him everything before she spoke a single word. "They killed him, didn't they?" Taeyang asked. "Yes. Poisoned at a diplomatic dinner. The council is calling it an accident. And you want me to make them regret it. I want you to do what you trained your entire life to do. I want you to remind the galaxy why humanity survived every threat Earth ever threw at us. Can you do that?" Taeyang looked at his roses one last time. Beautiful, delicate things. But even roses had thorns. "Give me 6 months. I'll give you a fleet that can shake the stars. You have 3. Then I'll work faster." Within 24 hours, every human in Council space had received the same message: return home immediately. No exceptions. Diplomats, traders, students, tourists, all of them packed their belongings and headed for Earth. The galaxy watched in confusion as humanity simply vanished from their stations and colonies. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. Councillor Vexithara stood before them, his scales bright with agitation. "The humans are withdrawing completely. All trade has stopped. All communication channels have gone silent. They're sealing themselves inside their solar system." "Let them hide," High Chancellor Gorthax rumbled. "It saves us the trouble of containing them." "I'm not sure it's fear driving them," said the Velaran counselor, the flower-like being who had attended the fatal dinner. "Their exit was too organized, too quick, like they were following a plan." "A plan?" Vexithara scoffed. "What plan could they have? They're isolated, surrounded by our territories. Even if they wanted to retaliate, they can't reach us without crossing through a dozen member systems." But others were less certain. Intelligence reports began filtering in. Human military installations were active. Defense satellites were being deployed in unprecedented numbers. Something was happening inside the Sol system, but sensors couldn't penetrate the interference humanity was generating. On Earth, Admiral Taeyang stood in a massive underground facility that officially didn't exist. It was called the Forge, and it had been built 50 years ago when humanity first learned they weren't alone in the universe. Presidents and generals had looked at the stars and asked a simple question: what if they're not friendly? The answer was Project Prometheus, a secret weapons program that had consumed trillions of dollars and the work of humanity's best minds. While Earth's diplomats smiled and talked peace, its scientists and engineers prepared for war. Dr. Youngjia Kang was waiting for him in the main laboratory. She was 70 years old, barely 5 feet tall and one of the most dangerous humans alive. Her team had been developing weapons in secret for 3 decades. "Admiral, welcome back," she said with a slight bow. "I assume you're here to see our progress. The President wants to hit them hard and fast. What do you have for me?" Youngjia smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Everything. Let me show you." They walked through corridors lined with technology that would make the Council's scientists weep. The first stop was the missile bay. "Quantum disruption warheads," Youngjia explained, gesturing to rows of sleek weapons. "They don't explode in the traditional sense. Instead, they create a field that disrupts quantum coherence. Any advanced technology within the blast radius simply stops working. Shields, weapons, life support, everything." "How many do we have?" 10,000, with production ramping up. "We can make 100 a day now that we're not hiding the program." Next came the shipyards. Taeyang stared through reinforced windows at vessels unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They were beautiful and terrible, built from materials that could self-repair in minutes. Nanoforges, Youngjia called them. Microscopic machines that could rebuild damaged systems faster than enemies could destroy them. "We have 500 complete," Youngjia said. "Another 300 will be ready in 2 months. Each one carries enough firepower to fight a council battle group alone." "And crew?" "That's the beautiful part. Each ship only needs 50 people. Automated systems handle most functions. We built these to be efficient killers, Admiral. Every human life is precious. We don't waste them." The tour continued. They saw combat suits that enhanced human strength and speed to superhuman levels. Medical systems that could keep soldiers fighting through injuries that would kill any alien. Communication networks that couldn't be jammed or intercepted. And weapons. So many weapons. We also have these. Young Jia led him to a sealed chamber. Inside, rows of small devices glowed with soft blue light. Cognitive enhancers. They increase reaction time, processing speed, and decision-making ability by roughly 40%. Side effects are minimal. We've been testing them on volunteers for years. The council thinks we're primitive, Taeyang said softly. They have no idea what's coming. They murdered one of our best people and thought we'd just accept it. That was their mistake. Young Jia's expression hardened. We're not the species they think we are. We've been preparing for this since the first day we met them. While the weapons were being prepared, Minister Kyung-soo Ro was coordinating Earth's intelligence network. He sat in a dark room surrounded by holographic displays, watching information flow in from agents across the galaxy. Kyung-soo had spent 20 years infiltrating council space. His operatives looked human, but were actually advanced androids, impossible to detect without detailed scans. They had embedded themselves in dozens of worlds, gathering information, making contacts, learning secrets. Now those agents were earning their keep. They mapped every military installation within 50 light-years. They identified fleet positions, weapon caches, and strategic resources. They hacked into council communication networks and downloaded decades of classified information. The council had no secrets anymore. Earth knew everything. We have complete tactical data on the Draxian home fleet, one of his analysts reported. 17 battleships, 43 cruisers, and over 100 support vessels. Mark them all as priority targets, Kyung-soo said. Vexathara's people will be the first to burn. President Haiwan Song watched it all from her office, approving plans and allocating resources. She slept 4 hours a night and worked the rest. Her cabinet worried about her health, but she refused to rest. We get one chance at this, she told them. If we fail, humanity will be crushed. The council will make an example of us that will echo for millennia, but if we succeed, we'll rewrite galactic history. Are you certain this is the right path? Her chief advisor asked carefully. There might still be room for diplomacy. They murdered Hyunwoo. They poisoned a man who came in peace, who trusted them. Haewon's voice was ice. There's no diplomacy left, only justice. The 3 months passed like lightning and eternity. Across Earth's solar system, humanity transformed itself into a weapon. Orbital factories worked around the clock. Soldiers trained until they could fight in their sleep. Pilots ran simulations of battles that hadn't happened yet. Scientists pushed technology to its absolute limits and then pushed further. The galaxy noticed but misinterpreted. Council intelligence analysts wrote reports about Earth's military buildup, but they classified it as defensive posturing. A young species throwing a tantrum, building walls to hide behind. Let them waste their resources, the report said. Eventually, they'll come back begging for trade, and we can dictate terms. Only a few voices urged caution. The Valoran counselor, who had seen something in President Haiwan's eyes during a final diplomatic message, suggested perhaps humanity should be taken seriously. But she was ignored. After all, what could one small planet do against the combined might of 47 civilizations? On the final day before launch, Admiral Taeyang stood before his assembled fleet commanders. 500 ships hung in space, around Earth, each one a masterpiece of human engineering and anger. 50,000 of humanity's best warriors waited for his words. They think we're weak, he said, his voice carrying across every ship. They think we're young and foolish and easily controlled. They murdered our ambassador because they thought we'd be too afraid to respond. They were wrong. He paused, looking at the faces on the screens. Young and old, every ethnicity and background, united by one thing. They were human, and someone had hurt their family. In 6 hours, we jumped to council space. We're going to hit them harder than anything they've ever experienced. We're going to show them that humans don't forgive murder. We don't forget justice. And we don't lose. The fleet roared its approval. War cries in 100 languages echoed through the void. For Hyunwoo, Taeyang said quietly, For Hyunwoo. 50,000 voices shouted back. The countdown began. Earth held its breath, and the galaxy, still ignorant of what was coming, continued its peaceful day as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Humanity was coming, and it was bringing fire. The first indication that something was wrong came at 600 Galactic Standard Time. Sensors at the Draxian military station detected quantum fluctuations 12 light-years away. The officer on duty noted it in the log but wasn't concerned. Quantum anomalies happened all the time in deep space. At 0601, 50 human warships materialized from nowhere, their weapons already hot. Contact. Multiple contacts. The Draxian officer screamed into his comm. Unknown vessels, human configuration, they're everywhere. But it was already too late. The human ships fired as one. Quantum disruption missiles crossed the distance in seconds. When they detonated, every piece of advanced technology in the station simply stopped working. Shields died. Weapons went silent. Life support systems flickered and failed. The station went dark and dead in an instant. It was happening everywhere at once. Across 12 systems, human fleets appeared like ghosts made solid. They struck military bases, command centers, and council fleet positions with surgical precision. The attacks were coordinated to the second, timed perfectly to hit before any warning could spread. On Nexus Prime, High Chancellor Gorthax was reviewing economic reports when his aide burst into the chamber. Chancellor.
We're under attack!
The humans, they're attacking everywhere. What? That's impossible. Where did they get the ships? The fleet strength? Gorthax pulled up tactical displays. His ancient face went pale as he saw the scale of the assault. How many? At least 500 vessels, maybe more. They're using weapons we've never seen. Our defenses are barely slowing them down. Admiral Taeyang stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Indomitable Spirit. Around him, holographic displays showed the progress of the attack. Every target was being hit exactly as planned. 3 months of preparation were paying off in 3 hours of devastation. Status report, he commanded. Draxian Third Fleet is scattered. 17 ships destroyed, 23 disabled. The rest are retreating. His tactical officer was calm, professional. They had trained for this moment. Corvin Defense Network is down. Velaran orbital stations have surrendered. We're reading Council distress calls on all frequencies. And our losses? 3 ships damaged, 0 destroyed. Nanoforges are already making repairs. Taeyang nodded. It was going better than expected. The Council's forces were strong but complacent. They hadn't fought a real war in centuries. Their tactics were old, their reflexes slow. Humanity had studied every battle in Council history and learned from all of them. Begin Phase 2. Captain Park, take your task force to Nexus Prime. I want that station surrounded. Captain Ji-Won Park, who had watched her friend die and brought the evidence of murder home, smiled coldly. Yes, Admiral. It will be my pleasure. Her battle group of 60 ships jumped to Quantum Drive. They emerged in orbit around Nexus Prime like wolves surrounding prey. The station's defensive fleet tried to form a battle line, but it was chaos. Ships from a dozen different species trying to coordinate in real time, each with different communication protocols and tactics. Human ships tore through them like paper. The quantum disruption weapons were devastating. Council ships that had fought for centuries found themselves dead in space, their crews helpless as human marines boarded and seized control. The few ships that tried to fight conventionally discovered that human reflexes were faster, human tactics more aggressive, human technology more advanced than anyone had guessed. This is Captain Park to Nexus Prime Control, G1 broadcast on all frequencies. Your defensive fleet is destroyed. Your weapons are disabled. Surrender the station and no more lives will be lost. You have 10 minutes to comply. Inside the council chambers, pandemonium reigned. Councilors from dozens of species shouted over each other, demanding action, calling for reinforcements, or pleading for peace. High Chancellor Gorthax tried to maintain order but was failing. We have to surrender, the Valoran councilor insisted. They've beaten us. Look at the tactical reports. 1/3 of our military strength is gone in 3 hours. We cannot surrender to these primitives. Fexithara's scales were dark with rage. Rally the remaining fleets. We still outnumber them. With what? Another councilor demanded. Half our command structure is gone. Our communication networks are compromised. We can't even coordinate a defense. Gorthax made a decision. Activate the station shields. Full power. They cannot penetrate them. We'll hold out until reinforcements arrive. The massive energy shields surrounding Nexus Prime flared to life. They had never been breached in 3,000 years of operation. The station was considered impregnable. Captain Park watched the shields activate and keyed her comm. "Admiral, they've refused surrender." "Understood. Proceed with shield penetration. Show them what humans can do." Jiwan turned to her weapons officer. "Deploy the resonance torpedoes. Target the shield generators. All ships fire on my mark." The torpedoes were another gift from Dr. Youngja's laboratories. They didn't try to break through shields. Instead, they matched the shield's frequency and created destructive interference. The weapons struck the shields, and for a moment nothing happened. Then the shields began to flicker, to pulse, to scream as their quantum structure was torn apart from the inside. Within 60 seconds, the impregnable shields of Nexus Prime collapsed completely. "Shields down," Jiwan's tactical officer reported. "Station is defenseless. This is your final warning," Jiwan broadcast. "Surrender now or we will board the station by force. You have 5 minutes." Gorthak stared at the readings in disbelief. The shields were gone. 3,000 years of protection ended in 1 minute. "How is this possible?" "Our shields are the most advanced in the galaxy." "Perhaps they were," the Valoran counselor said quietly. "But we're not fighting the galaxy. We're fighting humans, and we've made a terrible mistake." When the council still refused to surrender, the Marines went in. Colonel Hyorin Bay led the assault, her combat suit making her faster and stronger than any alien soldier. Her team of 200 breached the station at 6 points simultaneously. The fighting was brief and brutal. Council security forces were well trained but completely unprepared. Human soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, their enhanced reflexes and strength overwhelming every defense. They used non-lethal weapons when possible, killing only when necessary. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. Hyorin's team reached the council chambers 30 minutes after boarding. She blasted through the sealed doors and entered with her squad, weapons ready. The counselors cowered behind their seats. Some tried to run, some tried to fight. It didn't matter. "By the authority of the United Earth Government," Hyorin announced, her voice amplified by her suit's speakers, "you are all under arrest for the murder of Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim and crimes against humanity. Surrender peacefully and you will be treated fairly. Resist and you will be subdued." Vexathara tried to activate a hidden weapon, but human intelligence had already found it. A pulse from a marine stunner dropped him instantly. Gorthax, the ancient chancellor who had ruled for centuries, simply sat in his chair and closed his eyes. He knew it was over. Admiral Taeyang's fleet had complete control of Nexus Prime. The heart of galactic civilization was in human hands. And now the galaxy was watching. Every species, every world, every being with a communication device was seeing the same thing. Humans broadcasting live footage of the captured counselors being led away in restraints. Taeyang himself appeared on every screen in the galaxy. His uniform was spotless. His expression was calm. His words were measured but carried the weight of Earth's fury. 3 months ago, the Galactic Council murdered Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim. He came in peace. He sought friendship and cooperation. For this, he was poisoned and killed. The Council called it an accident. They lied. He paused, letting that sink in. We tried diplomacy. We tried trust. We offered our hand in friendship. The Council slapped it away and murdered our ambassador. This is our response. The footage shifted to show the captured counselors, including Vexathara and Gorthax, locked in cells designed to hold the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. "Justice has come to the galaxy," Taeyang continued. "The old council, which ruled through corruption and fear, is ended. In its place, humanity will build something better, something fair, something that serves all species equally, not just the ancient and powerful." Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice was iron. "To every world that stood with the council that profited from their corruption, your time is over. To every species that wanted change but was too afraid to speak, we hear you now. To anyone who thinks they can restore the old order, try it. See what happens." The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, beings of every species stared at their screens in shock. In one day, humanity had done the impossible. They had shattered the Galactic Council, the institution that had ruled for 3,000 years. They had taken Nexus Prime, the impregnable fortress. They had humbled species that considered themselves gods compared to the young humans, and they had done it all for one man. One murdered ambassador, One friend who had trusted the wrong people. On Earth, President Hae-won-song watched the same broadcast from her office. Tears ran down her face, but she was smiling. We did it, Hyunwoo. We made them pay. Now we'll make sure it never happens again. The stars looked different from Nexus Prime. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim stood before the massive viewing window, watching ships from dozens of alien worlds drift through the darkness like glowing fish in an ocean. He had dreamed of this moment since he was a boy reading about the stars from his small apartment in Busan. Now, at 53 years old, he was the first human to represent Earth at the Galactic Council. Beautiful, isn't it? Dr. Sungmin Lee stepped beside him, holding 2 cups of coffee. Real coffee, brought from Earth. The aliens didn't understand why humans loved the bitter drink so much. Hyunwoo accepted the cup with a grateful nod. Beautiful and terrifying. We're so new to all of this. They've been doing this for thousands of years. That's exactly why they need us, Sungmin said. Fresh perspective. The station around them was enormous beyond imagination. Nexus Prime housed over 10 million beings from 47 different species. The corridors were filled with creatures that walked, slithered, floated, and moved in ways that defied description. Some breathed oxygen like humans. Others wore environmental suits that hissed and bubbled. The first week, Hyunwoo had felt overwhelmed by the sheer strangeness of it all. Now, a month into his mission, he was starting to see patterns. The Galactic Council wasn't the peaceful paradise Earth's government had hoped for. Behind the diplomatic smiles and formal ceremonies, there was corruption. Old species controlled the best trade routes. They kept younger civilizations like humanity trapped in small corners of space. They smiled and spoke of unity, but their actions told a different story. Hyunwoo had spent weeks collecting evidence. Secret recordings of council members dividing up territory. Documents showing how they fixed votes. Messages revealing plans to keep Earth contained to its own solar system for at least another century. The proof was damning, and Hyunwoo planned to present it at the Grand Assembly next month. You look worried, Sungmin observed. I am worried. What we're about to do will shake the entire council. Some of these species have controlled galactic politics for millennia. They won't give up power easily. Then we'll have to be smarter than them. A chime sounded from Hyunwoo's communication device. He glanced at the screen and his expression darkened. It's from Counselor Vexthera. He wants to meet. Sungmin frowned. The Draxian counselor had been one of the most vocal opponents of humanity's inclusion in galactic affairs. He was a tall reptilian creature with scales that shimmered like oil and eyes that never seemed to blink. In public, he was polite. In private sessions, he had called humans primitive apes and suggested they weren't ready for space travel. What does he want? To talk about Earth's trade proposals, apparently. Hyunwoo set down his coffee. I should go. Will you check on Captain Park? Make sure the Soul's Pride is ready for departure. If things go badly here, we might need to leave quickly. You think it's that dangerous? I think we're about to upset a system that's been in place for 3,000 years. Yes, it's that dangerous. The meeting with Vexthera took place in one of the station's private conference rooms. The Draxian was already waiting when Hyunwoo arrived, his long tail coiled beneath his seat. 2 other counselors sat with him, a floating jellyfish-like creature from the Luminary Collective, and a stocky, rock-skinned being from the Corvin hegemony. Ambassador Kim. Vexthera's voice was smooth, almost friendly. Thank you for coming. Please sit. Hyunwoo took the offered chair, keeping his expression neutral. Gentlemen, ladies, honored beings. What can I do for you? We've been reviewing Earth's trade proposals, the Corvin counselor rumbled. They're quite ambitious for such a young species. Earth has much to offer the galaxy, Hyunwoo replied carefully. Our medical technology, our agricultural methods, our art and culture. Indeed, Vexthera leaned forward. But there are concerns. Your species is growing very quickly. Your ships are exploring far from your home system. Some council members worry about human expansion. We're simply doing what any intelligent species does. We're exploring, learning, growing. Of course, the Draxian's smile showed too many teeth. We simply want to ensure that growth happens responsibly. Perhaps Earth should focus on developing your own system for another century or 2. Build a stronger foundation before reaching outward. There it was. The gentle pressure to keep humanity boxed in. Hyunwoo had heard variations of this speech from a dozen different counselors. They all wanted the same thing, to keep the new species small and manageable. With respect, Counselor, humanity didn't come to the stars to stay in one corner. We came to join the galactic community as equals. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The luminary pulsed with dark colors. The Corvin's rocky face became even more rigid. Equals? Vexithara's voice lost its friendly tone. Your species learned to split the atom barely 300 years ago. We were building stargates when your ancestors were living in caves. You are not our equals, Ambassador. Not yet, Hyunwoo stood slowly. Then this conversation is over. Thank you for your time. Wait. Vexithara raised a clawed hand. I apologize. That was unkind. Please sit. We're all friends here. Against his better judgment, Hyunwoo sat back down. The Draxian's manner shifted again, becoming warm and conspiratorial. Look, I'll be honest with you. There are members of this council who want to see humanity succeed. But there are also those who fear you. Your species is aggressive, expansionist. Some counselors think you're dangerous. We've given no one reason to think that, haven't you? Your history is filled with wars. Your entertainment glorifies violence. Your military capabilities, though primitive by our standards, are considerable for such a young species. Every species has a violent past. Even yours, Counselor. True, but we learned restraint over millennia. You're still so young, so impulsive. Vexthara leaned back in his chair. However, I believe we can work together. If Earth is willing to be patient, to accept guidance from more experienced species, there's a bright future ahead. In fact, I'd like to discuss this further. Would you join me for dinner tonight? A small gathering of senior counselors. Very informal. Every instinct told Hyunwoo to refuse, but this might be an opportunity to gauge his opposition, to understand what they were planning. I'd be honored. Excellent. I'll send the details to your quarters. And Ambassador? Come alone. These dinners are traditionally just for counselors. No security, no assistance. A gesture of trust among colleagues. After Hyunwoo left, the three counselors remained in the room. The luminary pulsed with anxious colors. Are you certain this is wise? It asked in its musical voice. The human has been asking too many questions, Vexthera replied, accessing restricted files, speaking to junior counselors about council history. He knows too much. And if Earth retaliates? The Corvin asked. They're one small planet. We are the council, representing 47 civilizations. They'll complain, we'll apologize, and life will continue. Vexthera's eyes gleamed. Besides, it will be a tragic accident. Nothing more. That evening, as Hyunwoo prepared for the dinner, he sent a message to Captain Park. If anything happens to me, make sure Earth knows the truth about the council. Then he put on his best suit and went to meet his fate. The private dining hall was elegant and dimly lit. Soft music played from hidden speakers, something that sounded like wind chimes mixed with distant thunder. Hyunwoo arrived exactly on time as protocol demanded. A servant, some kind of insectoid creature with 6 delicate arms, took his coat and led him inside. 8 counselors were already seated around a circular table. Vexithara stood to greet him, his scales catching the light. Ambassador Kim, welcome. Please sit here beside me. The dinner began pleasantly enough. They discussed art and philosophy, carefully avoiding politics. The food was strange but palatable. Hyunwoo recognized none of it, but the flavors were interesting. Sweet and savory mixed in ways Earth chefs had never attempted. He drank sparingly from his glass, some kind of fermented fruit drink that tasted like honey and starlight. Tell me, Ambassador, said a counselor from the Velaran Ascendancy, a being that looked like a walking flower. What do humans dream of when they look at the stars? The same thing everyone dreams of, I think, connection, purpose, the hope that we're not alone. Hyunwoo smiled. Though I suppose we know now that we're not. And yet you feel alone, don't you? Vexithara said softly. Here, among all of us ancient species, Earth is so young, so new to all of this. It must be isolating. Sometimes, Hyunwoo admitted, but every species was young once. Every civilization had to start somewhere. Wise words. Vexithara poured more of the honey drink into Hyunwoo's glass. A toast, then. To new beginnings and old friendships. They all raised their glasses. Hyunwoo drank deeply. The liquid was warming, pleasant. He felt relaxed for the first time in weeks. You know, he said, his tongue feeling slightly thick, I hope we can work together more closely. Earth has so much to learn from the Council, but also much to teach. We could build something better, more fair for everyone. Of course, Vexithara replied. His voice seemed to come from very far away. We all want that. Hyunwoo's vision blurred. The room tilted sideways. His glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. He tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't obey. Something was very wrong. What? He tried to speak, but his throat closed. His heart hammered in his chest, then skipped, then hammered again irregularly. A tragic medical incident, Vexathara said calmly, watching as Hyunwoo slumped forward. Humans are so fragile. Their biology simply cannot handle some of our foods. We tried to warn him, but he insisted on trying everything. Such a shame. The other counselors nodded in agreement. None of them moved to help as Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim, Earth's first voice to the stars, died alone among aliens who smiled. Lieutenant Yoonji Choi found him 2 hours later. She had been waiting outside the Soul's Pride for the ambassador to return. When he missed his scheduled check-in, she went looking. The dining hall doors were open. The counselors were gone. Hyunwoo lay slumped across the table, his eyes open but seeing nothing. No, Yoonji ran to him, checking for a pulse. Nothing. His skin was already cooling. She activated her comm unit. This is Lieutenant Choi to Soul's Pride. Medical emergency. The ambassador is down. I repeat, the ambassador is down. Within minutes, human medical staff arrived. Dr. Sungmin pushed through the doors, his face pale. He scanned Hyunwoo's body with his medical equipment, but Yoonji could see the truth in his eyes. Their friend was gone. What happened? Sungmin's voice shook. I don't know. I found him like this. Yoonji looked around the room. Where are the other counselors? They should still be here. Station security arrived next, but not to help. A squad of armed Corvin guards blocked the doorway. Their leader, a massive creature twice Yoonji's height, pointed at her with a rocky finger. You will leave. This is a council matter now. This is a human matter, Yoonji shot back. A human diplomat has died under suspicious circumstances. We have the right to investigate. You have no rights here. This is Nexus Prime under council jurisdiction. Leave now or you will be removed. More guards appeared. They were heavily armed and clearly serious. Sungmin grabbed Yoonji's arm. Come on. We need to contact Earth. They retreated to the Soul's Pride, taking what samples they could smuggle past the guards. Back on the ship, Sungmin worked frantically in the medical bay while Captain Jiwon Park sent urgent messages to Earth. They're blocking our communications, Jiwon reported. Every channel is jammed. We can't get through. Keep trying, Yoonji said. She was pacing, her hands clenched into fists. This wasn't an accident. I saw the way those counselors looked. They weren't surprised. They weren't upset. They were relieved. I need more time to confirm it, Sungmin said, examining tissue samples under a microscope. But preliminary results show an unknown toxin in his system. Something that mimics a heart attack but leaves almost no trace. Almost? Jiwon asked. The council doesn't know about human neural implants. We all have them for medical monitoring. Hyunwoo's recorded everything, including the molecular breakdown of everything that entered his bloodstream. Sungmin looked up, his eyes hard. This was murder, planned and executed by members of the Galactic Council. The ship fell silent. Outside, through the viewports, Nexus Prime continued its rotation. Millions of beings going about their daily lives, unaware that everything was about to change. Finally, Jiwon spoke. We need to get this evidence to Earth. If they're jamming communications, we'll have to run. How fast can we prepare for departure? The station will try to stop us, Yoonji warned. Then we'll have to be faster. Sungmin, secure all evidence. Yoonji, prep the weapon systems. If they want to keep us here, they'll have to try very hard. 3 hours later, the Soul's Pride burned away from Nexus Prime at full thrust. Station defense ships tried to intercept, but the human vessel was built for speed. It dove into the quantum tunnel network and vanished, carrying proof of murder across the galaxy. On Nexus Prime, High Chancellor Gorthax watched the ship escape on his monitors. He was an ancient being, old when Earth's sun was young. His species had ruled the Council for 1,000 years. He turned to Vexathara with cold eyes. You said this would be clean. It was clean, the Draxian insisted. A medical accident. The humans can't prove otherwise. They just ran. They're taking evidence back to their homeworld. You've created a problem. They're one ship, one small planet. What can they do? File a complaint? Vexthera laughed. We've dealt with angry young species before. We'll issue a formal apology, express our sorrow, perhaps offer some compensation. In a few years, they'll forget all about it. And if they don't forget, then we'll remind them of their place. They're surrounded by our worlds, our fleets. If they make trouble, we'll quarantine their system. They'll either accept our authority or be cut off from the galaxy. Either way, the problem solves itself. Gorthax wasn't convinced, but he nodded. The decision was made. The human was dead. Now they would see how Earth responded. The Soul's Pride reached Earth 3 weeks later. Captain Jiwan Park delivered the evidence directly to President Haiwan Song. The president sat in silence as she watched the recordings, read the reports, and examined the proof. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands gripped the armrests of her chair until her knuckles turned white. "They murdered him," she said finally. "They murdered our ambassador and they think we'll just accept it." "The council has sent a message," her aide said quietly. "They expressed their condolences for the tragic accident. They've offered to send a delegation to discuss how to prevent such incidents in the future." An accident. President Haiwan stood and walked to the window. Earth spread out below, blue and green and precious. Billions of humans going about their lives unaware that one of their best had been murdered among the stars. She turned to her advisors. Her voice was calm, cold, and absolutely certain. "Recall every human from council space. Close our borders. Activate every defense satellite and military installation we have. And wake up Admiral Han. Tell him it's time." "Time for what, Madam President?" "Time to show the galaxy what happens when you murder a human who came in peace." The trials began 3 weeks after the fall of Nexus Prime. President Haiwan Song appointed Ambassador Jae-hee Shin to oversee the proceedings. Jae-hee was young for such responsibility, only 38, but she had been Hyun-woo's student. She understood what he had wanted to build. The courtroom was set up in the main assembly, Hall of Nexus Prime, the same chamber where the council had made decisions for 3,000 years now hosted something new: accountability. Representatives from every species in the galaxy were invited to attend. Many came, curious and afraid in equal measure. The accused sat in a long row: Vexithara, Gorthax, and 14 other counselors who had participated in or covered up the assassination. They were not mistreated. Human guards ensured they received proper food, medical care, and even legal representation. This confused many alien observers. "Why do you treat them with such care?" asked a reporter from the Luminary Collective. "They murdered your ambassador." "Because we are not them," Jae-hee answered simply. "We seek justice, not revenge." "There is a difference." The trials were broadcast across the galaxy. Evidence was presented methodically. The recordings from Hyun-woo's neural implant showing his vital signs as the poison took effect. Communications between conspirators planning the murder. Financial records showing bribes and corruption stretching back centuries. The galaxy watched as the truth unfolded. Some species were angry that humans dared to judge council members. Others were shocked by the depth of corruption revealed. But most were simply amazed that the trials were fair. Humans actually followed their own rules about evidence and due process. The accused could speak in their own defense. Witnesses were cross-examined. It was unlike anything the council had ever done. Vexithara defended himself arrogantly at first. "We acted to protect the galactic order. Humans were becoming too ambitious, too dangerous. We did what was necessary." "You murdered a diplomat," Jae-hee replied calmly. "A man who came in peace. That is never necessary. That is simply evil." The Draxian had no response to that. He was found guilty along with all the other conspirators. The sentence was exile to a remote prison world, where they would live out their days. No executions. No torture. Just isolation and time to think about what they had done. Many people wanted them dead, Jae-hee explained to the press. Humans especially. But Hyun-woo believed in justice and law. He would not have wanted revenge killings. So instead, they will live with their guilt. For some beings, that is a worse punishment than death. While the trials proceeded, President Haiwan began the enormous task of rebuilding galactic governance. She appointed Minister Kyung-soo Ro to investigate the full scope of council corruption. What he found was staggering. They were running slave operations, Kyung-soo reported in a closed meeting. At least 15 species were being systematically exploited. The council knew about it. Some council members were profiting from it. How did they hide this? Admiral Tae-yang asked. They controlled information. If you only heard what the council wanted you to hear. Everything seemed perfect. But now that we have access to their files, Kyung-soo shook his head. It's worse than we thought. The corruption went all the way down. Then we clean it all out, Haewon said firmly. Every bit of it. We make this right. The work began. Human ships, supported by forces from species that had suffered under Council rule, liberated the slave operations. Beings who had been property for generations suddenly found themselves free. It was chaotic and difficult, but necessary. Trade routes were reorganized to be fair to all species. The old system had favored Council favorites and punished everyone else. The new system was based on actual economics rather than political influence. Some wealthy species protested, but their complaints fell on deaf ears. "You profited from corruption for centuries," Jahe told one angry delegation. "Now you will compete fairly like everyone else. If you cannot survive without cheating, perhaps you don't deserve to survive at all." Not everyone welcomed the changes. Several species tried to resist. The Corvan hegemony attempted to rebuild a separatist council. Admiral Taeyang took a fleet to their home system and blockaded it. "You have two choices," he broadcast to them. "Join the new Galactic Federation as equals, or sit in your system alone until you reconsider. We will not allow the old corruption to return." After 3 months of isolation, the Corvans surrendered and joined the Federation. They were accepted without punishment because the new system was about the future, not the past. Slowly, painfully, a new order emerged. The Galactic Federation was nothing like the Council. Every species, regardless of age or power, had equal representation. Meetings were broadcast publicly. Financial records were open for inspection. Laws applied to everyone equally. It was messy and inefficient and absolutely necessary. Democracy always was. The Council made decisions quickly, one alien diplomat complained. "The Federation takes weeks to agree on anything." "The Council made quick decisions that benefited the powerful," Jahe replied. "We make slow decisions that benefit everyone. There is a difference." Dr. Youngjia Kang, the scientist who had built Earth's weapons, now worked on something different. She converted her military factories to produce medical equipment, communication satellites, and infrastructure technology. Earth shared its advances freely with other species. "Why would you give away such valuable technology?" asked a Valoran scientist examining a human medical scanner that could diagnose hundreds of diseases in seconds. "Because the galaxy is stronger when everyone is strong," Youngjia explained. "We learned that on Earth. When we were divided into nations competing against each other, we wasted resources on conflict. When we united, we reached the stars. The galaxy can do the same." 1 year after the fall of the Council, a memorial was dedicated on Nexus Prime. It stood in the center of the main plaza, a simple statue of Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim looking up at the stars. The inscription read, "He came in peace. His death brought justice. His dream brought unity." Representatives from every species attended the ceremony. Even former Council loyalists came to pay their respects. Whatever their feelings about the Federation, everyone agreed that Hyunwoo's murder had been wrong. President Haewon gave the dedication speech. She was older now, grayer, but her voice was still strong. "Hyunwoo believed in the best of all of us," she said. "Human, alien, it didn't matter to him. He saw the potential for something beautiful in the galaxy. A community of species working together, learning from each other, growing together." She paused, looking at the statue of her old friend. "They killed him because they were afraid of change. Afraid of losing power. Afraid that a better galaxy was possible. They were right to be afraid. Change came. It came with fire and fury, but it came. The crowd was silent, listening. Beings from dozens of worlds who had once barely spoken to each other, now stood together. The Federation is not perfect," Haewon continued. "We argue. We disagree. Sometimes we fail. But we try. We keep trying to build something better. That is Hyunwoo's legacy. Not the war, not the conquest, but the determination to create justice where there was none." She bowed to the statue. "Rest well, old friend. Your dream is alive." 20 years later, the galaxy was transformed. The Federation had grown to include 73 species. Human colonies dotted hundreds of worlds, but so did alien colonies. Species mixed and mingled freely. Mixed species crews explored the galaxy together. Children of different worlds learned about each other's cultures and integrated schools. There were still problems. Prejudice didn't disappear overnight. Some species never fully trusted humans after seeing what they were capable of in war. Some humans never forgave the species that had supported the Council. But slowly, generation by generation, the wounds healed. Admiral Taeyang retired for the second time, this time permanently. He spent his final years teaching at Earth's military academy, training new officers. His students came from every species in the Federation. Why did you fight? One young Draxian cadet asked him. Draxians had been enemies once, but this generation had grown up in peace. Because my friend was murdered, Tae Young answered honestly. Because the council thought we were weak. Because someone had to show the galaxy that justice matters. Would you do it again? The old admiral was quiet for a long moment. I hope I never have to. War should always be the last choice. But if someone hurt my friends, my family, my species... He looked at the cadet with eyes that had seen battle. Yes, I would do it again. That is what it means to be human. Captain Ji-won Park became Admiral Park and took command of the Federation's exploration fleet. She led missions into unknown space, discovering new worlds and new species. Some joined the Federation. Others chose isolation. All were treated with respect. Dr. Sung-min Lee, who had been Hyunwoo's friend, lived to be 93. He spent his later years working on a project to digitize the memories of the galaxy's elders. Billions of lifetimes of wisdom, preserved for future generations. Ambassador Jae Hee-shin became the Federation's first Secretary General. She served for 15 years, guiding the young government through its difficult early growth. Under her leadership, the Federation expanded its charter to protect individual rights, prohibit slavery, and ensure fair trade for all members.